All right, class, we're starting the semester by looking at angles in standard form. So an angle on the coordinate plane is in standard form when the vertex is on the origin and one ray lies on the positive x-axis. So the ray of the x-axis is called the initial side. The other ray is called the terminal side. Counterclockwise rotations result in positive angle measures, and clockwise rotations result in negative angle measures. And we're going to explore this in a second. The most common unit of measure of angles is the degree. A degree is equivalent to 1 over 360 degrees of a full rotation. Okay, so let's take a look at what we're seeing here. So when we're talking about degrees, right, so let's kind of take a step back actually. So looking at angles in standard form, we are talking here is our positive x-axis. We are starting here and we're rotating all the way out. And so this right here, this is our terminal ray. This is our initial ray. So here's our initial ray. This is our terminal ray. Okay. When we talk about degrees, we're starting here on the positive side of that x-axis and we are rotating counterclockwise until we finish that circle. So when we start, we call that degree 0. When we end that entire rotation, we're at 360 degrees. So we want to sketch the angle in standard form for the given measure. So if we're looking at 65 degrees, noticing that 90 degrees is right here at the top of our y-axis, that means that 60 degrees is going to, if we're going to sketch that, it's going to be in this quadrant here. It's going to be more than halfway. And so we see that this is going to be an example of 65 degrees. Okay. So let's look at number 2, which we're looking at 320 degrees. So because it's 320, that means we're going to be looking at this third quadrant here. So we're going to do a full rotation, almost a full rotation. And we're going to be really close to the 360, but we're not going to be there quite yet. So it's going to look something like this. Okay. So this is going to be 320 degrees. Okay. Now for 415 degrees, we are going to start again at the x-axis, but because 415 is greater than 360, then we're going to do an entire circle all the way around. So we're going to we're going to come all the way over, and then notice that 415 does end up in this quadrant because we don't pass the 90 degrees, because after 360, right, this would be an additional 90. And so 415 does not give us that additional 90 yet. All right, so that's all moving because these are positive angles. So if we look at number 4, we're looking at negative angles. So when we have a negative angle, we are moving in the clockwise rotation instead of the counterclockwise. So we start with x here, and we're doing negative 140. So now remember, this is going to be negative 90, and this is going to be negative 180 degrees. So 140 will be in this quadrant right here. So this would be 140 degrees negative because we're going in that clockwise rotation. Now again, this becomes negative 90 degrees. All right, so we're still starting here, and we're going to come 15 degrees is going to be really a lot closer to 0 than it would be to negative 90. So this would be our negative 15 degrees here. All right, and the last one here is negative 210. So again, we're starting here. That's going to pass our 180, and we are going to be in this quadrant here, and we're going to be looking at negative 210 degrees. Okay. All right. So let's take a look at radians. So radians is another way that we can look at a unit of angle measure, right? And this is based off of the arc length. So 1 radian is defined as the measure of the angle formed when the radius is equivalent to the length of the intercepted arc. Recall that the circumference of a circle is 2 pi r. Therefore, when we look at 360 degrees, that is going to be equivalent to 2 pi r, and that is going to be 2 pi radians actually. So because that's going to give us the entire circumference. So 180 degrees, that's going to be pi radians. Okay. So again, looking at our theta, it's going to equal to 1 radian. All right, so converting from degrees to radians here. So radians are going to equal degrees times, and then notice we have radians on the top, and we're going to be dividing by 180. On the other side, we have degrees equals radians, and so now we have 180 degrees over pi radians on the denominator. One way to think about this is if I'm getting rid of if I'm trying to get to degrees, I want to get rid of radians, so I should be dividing by radians, right? If I want to get radians, then I'm trying to get rid of degrees, so therefore I want to be dividing by those degrees. All right, let's take a moment here and look at, look at converting degrees to radians. So when we convert degrees to radians, we're going to have 60 degrees, right? Since I'm trying to go from degrees to radians, I'm going to have 60 degrees. And since I want to get rid of the degrees, I'm going to divide by 180 degrees, and I'm going to multiply by the radians pi. And so we're going to go ahead and simplify this. So 60 divided by 180, that's going to give me 3, so I get pi over 3. Okay. All right, let's look at number 8. So again, we're going from degrees to radians. So I'm going to have 160 degrees. Multiply that by pi over 180 degrees. Right. And then we're going to go ahead and simplify this, and we end up with 8 over 9 pi. Okay. All right, let's go ahead. I'm going to pause this video. I want you to try 9, 10, 11, and 12 and see what you come up with. All right, so hopefully you were able to complete all of these. You got 8 pi over 9, 11 pi over 6, negative 4 pi over 4, negative 23 pi over 18, and negative 5 pi over 12. All right, we'll do some more practice of this in class. Let's look at converting radians to degrees. So when we're converting radians to degrees, now I want to be able to get rid of the radians. So I'm going to multiply, I'm going to be dividing by the pi, and I'm going to be multiplying by the 180 so that my pi's cancel out. Okay. And so here we're going to get 5 over 18 times 180 degrees. We can reduce this, right? So we get 50 degrees. All right, we'll try one more. Let's try a negative. So let's go ahead and jump to number 18 and try this one. So negative 3 pi over 4. Remember, we're trying to get rid of pi, so we're going to put pi in that denominator. And in that numerator, we're going to have 180 degrees. Again, notice that those pi's cancel out. So then we get 3 times 180 divided by 4. So we end up with negative, because we started with negative, 135 degrees. All right, go ahead and try the rest of these. All right, let's check some of your answers. Hopefully you got 220 degrees, 420 degrees, negative 30 degrees, and negative 285 degrees there. Okay. All right, let's take a look at a new concept here. This is coterminal angles. Angles in standard position with the same terminal side are coterminal. So determine whether the two angles are coterminal. So take a look at here. So if we have two angles, so notice this is our initial side, this is our terminal side. So if the angles have the same terminal angle, they are considered coterminal. So here's one angle, and that's the 90 degrees. And then the other angle is going to be this angle coming in the opposite direction. And so since they both have the initial and the terminal angles the same, these are coterminal angles. So we want to know, okay, are these going to be coterminal angles here? Since we saw here in our circle that a coterminal angle consists of two angles that add 300 to 360 degrees, or 2 pi, we're going to use that to determine if these two angles are coterminal. So we're going to start off with 305. Which is that first angle. We're going to subtract 360 degrees. And we want to know, right, so from 305, how much more do we get to go to get to the 360 degrees? So when we do that subtraction, notice that we do end up with negative 55 degrees, which is the other angle we were trying to assess. So that means, yes, these are coterminal angles. Okay. All right, let's go ahead and try this one. So let's start with a positive 30 degrees. And do 30 degrees, we're going to subtract 360 degrees. What's left over? Well, we're going to be left over with negative 330 degrees. So unfortunately, in this case, they are not coterminal angles. Okay. All right, take a moment to try 21 and 22. All right, so hopefully you got no for the first one. Notice that in this case, we are dealing with radians, so 2 pi. I did convert 2 pi into 8 pi over 4, and then did the subtraction. For number 22, it got a little bit more complicated because they had already done an entire rotation. So because of that, we are looking at 4 pi there, and so then to convert this into a fraction, negative 8 pi over 2, and so we got negative 5 pi over 2. Okay. All right, so for the last couple of ones, we want to give two coterminal angles for each given angle, one positive and one negative. So how do we go about doing that? So what we're going to do is we're going to take the 150 for number 23, okay, and we are going to add 360 degrees, because that'll give us an entire full rotation, and so that's going to give us 510 degrees. And so these two would be coterminal. They have the same starting terminal and then the same ending terminal. And then we're going to take the 150, and then we're going to subtract the 360 degrees. So we're going to go in the reverse direction. And so that's going to give us negative 210 degrees. Okay. All right, let's do one with radians. Let's do number 28 with radians. So here we have negative 11 pi over 18. So we're going to start off with that. And then we are going to add, in this case, 2 pi. So we add negative 11 over 18 to 2 pi. Remember, that's the same thing as replacing this, because we want that same denominator. And so then we're going to have pi, and we're going to have 36. So negative 11 pi plus 36 pi over 18 is going to be equivalent. We're going to get 25 pi, 25 pi over 18 is going to be a coterminal angle. Then we're going to do the same thing, negative 11 pi over 18, subtract 2 pi, but I'm just going to rewrite it as an equivalent fraction, so we're going to subtract 36 over 18 pi, and then we're going to see that we're going to get 47 pi over 18, and that's going to be negative. Okay. All right, so try the last four here. All right, class, so hopefully these are the coterminal angles, or some of the coterminal angles you found. So 625, negative 95 degrees, positive 335 degrees, negative 385 degrees, 25 pi over 12, negative 23 pi over 12, 16 or 19 pi over 6, and negative 5 pi over 6. So hopefully you got all those. We'll keep working on this in class.